Welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm Ben.
And this is John.
And this is our first ever episode of Tasters. So welcome to our first ever episode of Tasters. This is where we take movies that have recently been rebooted or remade and compare them with the original film. And today we're focusing on the 1990 Flatliners with the 2017 film that just came out. What do we think about the original Flatliners?
I always remembered it kind of fondly. I know it being a follow-up to Lost Boys, a film I really love. I always liked it because it kind of was in the same vein. There's things that still work for me in that film, but I'm also reminded that the film kind of falls apart in its second half. I feel like it has more of an interesting premise, kind of falls apart playing that out in the second half, just going over the same territory and becoming repetitive, and also not really coming up with a very strong conclusion for the film. Yeah. So there's things I liked about it, and rewatching it again, a lot of the things that I remembered I enjoyed, like the gothic style, the cinematography, charismatic cast that you get. I like the movie, but it's just kind of a meh movie. It's a little bit more style over substance.
I found myself disliking it a lot more than I remember because I like movies with 3 acts and I like movies that have conclusions and closure. I'm not saying everything has to end perfectly or even how you would expect it to end. It has to follow through with a story arc, and the original Flatliners does not follow through. You see all those giant Dario Argento colors and lights that he throws up in there. To the effect of Flatliners, it makes it a visually interesting movie to look at because it's all just camera work and it's great lighting. Aside from that stuff though, the story doesn't follow through. Like I said, it presents a concept, but I just feel, what are they trying to do in this movie? By the end, what did they learn from it? And they never explore that in the original. So let's get into what we just saw, which is the 2017 remake. It's a straight up remake. It's not some kind of weird sequel, and it's not getting any love right now.
Yeah, it's currently sitting at 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. I imagine that score might go up a little bit by the time the weekend's over, but because I think people will see this and feel like it's meh as well. It's got a PG-13 rating, which is like the death nail for any horror movie that thinks that it's going to be scary or have any real thrills these days.
But what really was the difference between this and the original? The original was only R because of a few F-bombs.
Exactly, yeah. There isn't a huge difference there in terms of the scare factor and stuff. Basically, you have med students that are messing around, experimenting with the afterlife and trying to see if they can basically flatline themselves, put themselves under, and basically kill themselves for a few minutes to explore the afterlife and see what those near-death experiences are like, and then have their med student friends bring them back to life. Right. And both films work with this premise, and I think it's an interesting enough premise to base a film off of, but both films kind of fall flat by the end of the film because they just retread the same ground over and over. You see the next student go under, the next student's nightmares and dreams that come to life after they've gone under, but it just gets too repetitive for me.
At first I was like, why are they making a remake to Flatliners? Because Flatliners doesn't have much to do once it presents its premise. You're right, it's very repetitive and people just keep seeing visions. They beat the shit out of your head over and over again in this new remake with these visions. I mean, there must be 50 times more of them in this one. I think everyone had 1 or 2 in the original, but that goes with the fact that this one doesn't really have a clear-cut lead. Everyone kind of is the lead at one point in the film in this new one. When I was watching this one, I'm going, okay, now I see why they made this remake, because the first one has so many holes and unexplained things about why are they doing this? What are they going to use this for? Does it really matter that they're recording this with a videotape recorder? Because they could change that, and how are they really going to get famous from this? At least in this one, there's a scientific explanation. They're recording the brain. There's probably some really good hard data that they can prove by going into the afterlife.
This film, like you said, does a better job of giving some motivation and some explanation behind what they're trying to accomplish.
So we're going to get into our first major comparison between the two Flatliner films, and that is the filmmaker themselves. 1990 had Joel Schumacher. He's done such classics like Batman and Robin and Phone Booth. This original Flatliners film, the best thing about it to me is the visual style and the production design. Some of the things you see, it's this really interesting, like almost like a dream-like Chicago where there's not a lot of people around. There's not a lot of extras. This medical school they go to is some kind of weird Spanish Gothic church almost. It's very detailed and it's very, very interesting and intricate with all the little things that people see, and all of its symbolism symbolism, but it's never like something they talk about. It's just all there.
There's a lot of almost like religious symbolism to the decor and everything. I think the production design and the decor of the 1990s film is awesome. It's one of the best things about it. This strange dreamlike world that they create. Even the reality moments when they're just walking across campus, it's always very dreamlike with these weird, strange things going on in the background. Constant atmosphere with steam and mist and fog and things like that always at play. And great lighting done by Jean de Bont,
Who'll go on to do one of the best action movies ever made, Speed.
He's the DP of Die Hard, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You're talking about visual style, and to me, that's the strongest thing of the original. Now, we go to the 2017 Flatliners, and the visual style is, dare I say, flat. There's nothing to it. It looks like a television show.
Just glass and clinical looking medical school
It
setting.
looks like top of the line technology medical school bullshit. The camera work is stale. The little MRI looking machine that they lay in when they go flatline and put them under is not inspired at all. There's nothing interesting about the way this movie looks, except some of the, let's call them like flash deaths, because they're not hallucinations and they're not like flashbacks, but these flash deaths, some of them were staged decently and to my surprise were not full of CGI, which I was expecting, because we talked about the first one being done with good sound design, good camera work, creating that atmosphere without any kind of special effect, and this one didn't feel the need to do that, and I was really shocked.
What I liked about the original, whenever they have visions or hallucinations, each person's is slightly different. In this one, they all kind of felt like they were done the same.
I'm not going to even try to pronounce this guy's name. You can if you want. He's from Denmark, and we'll put his name up on screen. He's done some decent work before. He's actually directed Mr. Robot, which is a good show. So he's not a bad director, and I wouldn't say the movie's directed poorly necessarily. It's paced pretty bad. It's overlong. There's definitely filmmaking problems with it. The first film is a much stronger film as a piece of filmmaking, would you say?
I agree. Yeah.
So, and that'll bring us into our next comparison, which is story. So in 1990, it's presented in a very simple fashion. First thing I noticed was, I didn't remember. The whole thing's already kind of set in motion. We as the audience are playing catch up with the fact that these med students were introduced to very quickly, which I liked. Where are we meeting? Are you still on for midnight? And things like that. So I like that it gets us going and it doesn't spoon feed us with a certain central character. Get the audience up to date with what's going to happen. Hey, I'm working on this thing. And let's say right off the bat that the original has two very solid acts, the first and second. It doesn't fly off the rails. It just devolves into nothing and kind of doesn't really have any sort of conclusion. It doesn't finish its story. We don't know what happens next. It's just Kiefer Sutherland puts himself under and he's forgiven from the kid that fell out of the tree. Roll credits.
They go under. Each of these people have something in their past that they essentially bring their sins back, or their guilt is getting to them, and they're seeing visions that some of them are really actually manifesting into something physical that can actually hurt them, and others never really have that happen to them. But basically they all have to reconcile their past, say they're sorry to somebody, or admit their guilt in something that they did in their past. That's kind of the second half of the film, and like you said, you've got Kiefer feeling like his only way to solve it, because the person he has to reconcile with is dead, so he feels like going under is his way to connect with that person, say he's sorry, and make amends. The new film does all those same things. You have them. Each character is definitely different than the original. That's the one of the things that we thought going into this, that we were going to get 5 characters that none of them would interest us. They'd have 1 or 2 that are supposed to be the leads, and we probably care less about them anyway. And I think they did a good job of actually making you understand and know who these 5 people are. They were still PG-13 kind of teen-oriented characters that you get from films. Pointing out spoilers. Really the biggest, I guess, spoiler or biggest twist on the new film from the original, your lead character, if you would think that Ellen Page is probably the lead character of this film, they kill her halfway through the movie. Then it basically just, they say, oh, that's terrible. We got to solve our own problems because we don't want this to happen to us. They go off and solve their problems much like the original. They make amends with people. One of them feels the only way to make amends is to go under and talk to somebody who's dead.
I think they both kind of reach that organically. The last act of the new one, to me, plays out better because it's like this whole movie is leading up to something. And yeah, I mean, if you don't like the way this movie ends, maybe they just should never have made any Flatliners movies, because there's no other real way to end these unless you really want a big horror movie to come out of it and demons running around and them trying to reading from some book to end it all or something. But at least this one gives closure to characters and says, oh, you know what did we learn from all this? Maybe we shouldn't have done it. The original's ending isn't an ending, it just ends.
I think we would have liked to see an actual post wrap-up that talks about that has these characters discussing what they learned and what they're going to do with this information.
And this new one does that. I'm sounding like I'm liking this new one better. I don't like either one of them that much. But it's taking the gaps that didn't make sense in the original and the plot holes that were just there, and it's giving it something.
They're being physically attacked throughout the new film more than the original. For the actual characters, I didn't feel like any of these characters were really in danger, even though there was physicality being brought against Kiefer Sutherland. He actually gets the shit beat out of him a number of times. It just never really feels like these people are in any real danger they're going to lose their life, except in the scenes where they're putting themselves under and possibly not going to be able to resuscitate. You kind of feel the tension in those moments of, is this going to work? Is this person's really putting their life at risk to accomplish this? The new one doesn't really feel that way at all. I never felt like any time that they go under that anyone's not going to be resuscitated.
I want to piggyback on your comparison because I think that's the best comparison that's been made so far in these two movies. Towards the end of this new one, the tension in the scenes where they put them under and flatline them and then have to bring them back is fantastic in the first movie. It's the best part of the movie. This movie, I agree with you. It's played almost like a music video in one part and like a comedic scene in the next. So the tension's scrapped immediately. You can't come back from that. I felt more tension, believe it or not, in the flash deaths in the second one because they went more horror. Not because they were necessarily shot better or done better or acted better, but because it was more like a horror movie. It was jump scares and it was creepier imagery, where first one, the imagery's not as creepy as I remember. It's dark and it's gothic, but it's more spiritual strangeness, where this one, it was someone trying to fucking kill you and there was blood and it's, everything goes dark. No tension whatsoever in this new one when they put people under, which is kind of the point of the movie. Like, it's called Flatliners, and they kind of rush through all those parts. Well, and another really great comparison is in the original, they didn't feel the need to go to a rave and get drunk minutes after dying and being resuscitated either.
They're in the Flatliners Club. They say it so many times in the movie it becomes ridiculous.
The writing in the original does not feel the need to say, hey, guess what? We're gonna use Flatliners as the term for what we're doing. They say it so many times in this new movie. Hey, are you going to flatline tonight? Because Diego Luna's character is sort of the Oliver Platt, the one who doesn't do it.
You guys don't trust me because I'm not a flatliner.
We're flatlining tonight.
Hey, are you going to flatline? You flatlined.
Hey, what happened in your flatline?
Did you see that in your flatline?
I lost count how many times they use that term. So let's get into our final comparison, which is the cast. I mean, this is a no-brainer. You have just up-and-coming badasses about to make their mark in Hollywood for the 90s.
I love that original cast. It's like you said, it's kind of like a 90s Brat Pack a little bit. That's always been one thing that I've remembered fondly about the original, was just the cast and the chemistry between them on screen. I thought worked well. They're not all supposed to be the closest of friends in the movie, but they do seem like a realistic group of people who have come together. In the new film, we said this, we weren't sure going into it. We thought we'd have like 2 kind of known actors and 3 actors we could care less about, and that would probably happen with the characters as well. Strangely, the one you know the most is actually the one that exits the film early, and you're left with these other 4 characters. It was an interesting aspect to the new film to see that character leave the film halfway through, and then the one that kind of fills the role after that. I don't really love this actress.
Well, that's the thing. It kind of jumps around. I don't think anyone really does.
Nina Dobrev ends up being the one she's playing Marlowe, and she's the one that's kind of filling the Kiefer Sutherland role after the fact. She has the same past issue that she's dealing with, that she caused the death of, and the guilt of this, that she has to go under to reconcile this.
Yeah, the problem with her is that they introduce her a little late, as almost she's going to be that one cast member that is just a pretty face and you don't really see much of, and then she becomes the main character, and by that point you haven't gotten invested in her yet, so it kind of throws you for a loop. Most of her scenes with Diego Luna, who pretty much carries the movie in my opinion. Ellen Page is okay. Like, I don't think she's ever been this flat-chested. It's pretty easy to put the defibrillators on her. But there's just clearly bad acting in this new one.
Kiersey Clemens is the one who plays Sophia.
I don't know who she is or where she comes from, but she is terrible.
She was grating to listen to her.
I don't know if anyone coached her, like, hey, right now you're supposed to be this kind of concerned, not that kind of concerned. When she becomes the one who eventually has to have the Kevin Bacon sort of apology where she has to go find this person who she's cyberbullied, and hers was the most ridiculous, insincere apology. I've had girls apologize to me for breaking up with the whole "it's not you, it's me" thing. That sounded more sincere than this girl's apology. And she just kind of rushes into this building. Look, I only have 2 minutes, but would you accept my apology so I can move on real quick? The 2 minutes of quiet subtlety between Kevin Bacon and One Night was a very well acted scene, and it was a quiet scene, and he drove far away to go see her.
Casting wise, it doesn't live up to the original, but we were kind of mildly surprised that these that all 5 characters kind of came to life on screen, even if there was 1 or 2 of them that took a while to be brought to screen, or one of them was annoying and stupid the whole way through. She was still a big part of the movie, more than I thought that some of these characters were going to be. Now, the one that we really kind of liked, James Norton plays the character Jamie. He's kind of a mixture of Billy Baldwin's character, but also
Oliver Platt for comic relief.
Oliver Platt for comic relief.
And then he's kind of an original character. So I thought his performance was good, and it was fun, and it was needed, because as good as Diego Luna is, and he is good, but he was very dramatic and to the point in this movie. You needed this guy for sure.
I am the only one who did not flatline last night.
I think our box office is going to flatline.
The box office is going to flatline for fucking sure. So we have the original 1990s film. How I would taste that one, I would say that it wins in the direction, filmmaking, production design, visual style aspect. What about yourself?
The new one has very little style to remember. The first one, the 1990s version, is so much style. But I also think just craft of filmmaking. I kind of really love the movie on a visual standpoint. At least the first 30-40 minutes has all kinds of really cool gothic, creepy imagery.
Well, as a taste in story, I think we both would give the slight edge to the 2017 one, because it learned from the first one. It said, okay, these aspects don't make sense. Okay, this film doesn't end. This film doesn't give you any answers. What was the purpose of all this? What did we learn? Should we still do this, or should we bury it? And have we all changed as people because of it? You don't get any of that in the original.
Slight edge to the new one on story and giving us a little bit more to know about these characters. And I would say taking that one chance and that one killing off who you think is the main character halfway through creates a difference from the original.
Story-wise, got to give it to the 2017. So as a taste for the cast of the 2 Flatliners films, where do you stand?
I definitely prefer the taste of the original. I mean, these are great actors that we've loved in so many roles. Kiefer's great. Kevin Bacon's just been, I mean, he started out as kind of a scene stealer in some of his movies and turned into, just a fun actor in almost every role that he plays. Kind of the standouts in the original that I really love. Obviously, we loved Oliver Platt, just the comic relief he adds to that film, and then Billy Baldwin is really good in it. Not like great as a dramatic actor, but the character they give him and the role he fills in that film, I think is really good. Yeah. And so I think all 5 of them stand out as better than all 5 of the characters in the new one.
As long as we got each other.
My favorite being James Norton as Jamie.
This movie didn't introduce the world to James Norton, because no one's going to see this movie. It reminded you that Diego Luna is still a good actor, that Ellen Page is still alive.
So I think our final conclusion on the comparison of the 1990s Flatliners and the 2017 Flatliners, Ben and I both prefer the taste of the original. They're both somewhat forgettable films, but Ben, if you had to drink one of these films again, which one would it be?
Watch the first one, tell everyone flatlines, and then turn on the second one.
And then turn on the second one and watch the second half?
Yes. So thank you for watching our first ever episode of Tasters. If you guys like this episode, please leave some comments down in the comment section below. You can click like and or subscribe to Cinema Gulp today.
Please check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. Look for us under Cinema Gulp.
Until next time, this is Ben.
This is John.
We drink your cinema.
I drink it up!